Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast here in the Ramm's Den with me and Lawrence. Back at it again. The boys are back in
town.
town. Great. And yeah, I know we started in a funny way, but it's not a particularly funny topic we're talking about today. It's probably going to be a little bit somber, maybe a bit serious. What do you think? Or can we make it fun?
I can get why I could get why it was a serious vibe, but I didn't think it was going to be somber.
Somber. What is the definition of somber?
Well, I don't know. It's something about being sad, but it sounds like an instrument.
Right. I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, why were you surprised by it then? If you don't even know what it bloody means.
So I don't think it's going to be sad.
I thought you were going to have like a great definition for somber, which is why. Okay, forget it.
No.
A rocky start. You can tell it's been a couple of weeks since we did this.
Yeah.
We need to get back into a flow. All right, guys. So yeah, just let us know as we go if all the audio is okay and stuff, because we are still kind of testing the waters on a lot of these with these live podcasts. And today, what we're going to be doing is going to be discussing the title of the video is religion done? Should religion be done? That's another important question I hope we'll answer today. And are we all destined to become atheists? And is that even something that we would want? And we're going to be giving our opinions on this. And it's important to note that these are opinions, guys, because neither of us is in any way qualified to have this discussion. So, as always, I don't think we're ever qualified to have any of the discussions that we have, which is, I suppose we could start giving this disclaimer at the beginning that if you're offended by anything, it's because one of us or both of us are dumb. It's not actually, we don't have the qualifications or the background to really actually, apart from, I suppose, in your case, antinatalism, in my case, veganism, we've had years and years and years on those topics, but on everything else, we probably thought about it for like 5 minutes. So if it's offensive, that's why. I'll quit. Since this is my topic, I brought this one up. I'll kick things off and I'll put things to you because I want to bat some ideas off you and see what you think, and also see what the audience thinks too. So okay, here's my kind of proposal for this today. So we've all been raised in societies that have been defined by religion, whether we like it or not. Most people base their lives on religious fundamentals, either knowingly or unknowingly. You know what's funny? The first time I ever heard that where did your ethics come from? Where did your morals come from? They came from, if you were born in the West, they came from Judeo-Christian values. I rejected it immediately. It was Jordan Peterson who said it, and I was like, ugh, because I was such an anti-religion guy. It made me sick, the idea that I had. Like, how dare you think that I was that you think you're telling me I've been influenced, but I've not. I was really, really anti-religion at that point, and I thought it was really bad. And then the more I thought about it, I had to accept that he was bloody right, that he's 100% right. So that nudged me a little bit, kind of, okay, not so much anti, but still not really into.
A bit softer.
Yeah, and then so. More and more people these days are moving away from religion, right? And they attach themselves to other things instead. And it seems to me like people are trying to replace religion with other religions, but these other religions are not as robust and are not as good as the religion probably as good as the religion they left, which we'll get into. I'll give you some examples later. There's another thing I wanted to talk about. And I think we'll pause there because I've got a lot written down. I think we'll pause there. So that's basically my premise is that, okay, yeah, that we all were raised with religious values, whether we like it or not. Even atheists, their sense of what's right and wrong came from Christianity and Judeo-Christian values if they're in the West, came from Muslim values if they're in somewhere else, it's more Jewish focused if they're from somewhere else, or Hindu focused or Buddhist focused. But everybody got them from some religion, and unless there's some tiny areas of the world where they didn't, most people do get their kind of their society and their being, their actual who they are is defined by it, right? So that's the first kind of point. Do you agree with that point?
Yeah, well, I think religion has been a massive influence in all parts of the world, obviously different religions for different parts. So I agree it's sort of basically wherever you're raised, it's inescapable that you're going to have been at least somewhat influenced by religion.
Hmm.
How far you can push that, I don't know. Um, because often what you'll find is that a lot of religions will lay claim to certain values that actually were around, way before those religions were established.
Mm,
And for a long time, those religions were actually, regardless of what they taught, they practiced something that was completely opposite to those values.
mm,
So, for example, like, nowadays, a lot of, well, I say a lot of religions, at least in the West, Christianity, sort of sticks its flag in the ground of equality and equal treatment. But actually, for the majority of the time that Christianity was around,
mm.
um, it, in practice, regardless of what its actual teachings were, but in practice, it was the opposite of that.
Right.
There are other religions that even today, whilst they may claim that they believe in equality, they don't even practice it
Yeah.
today in a very open way. But they try to sort of mask it.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I I agree with you. I think religion has had a massive influence, but I think it's complicated because there's sort of
mm.
murky waters as to, are those religious values, are those values actually something the religions have adhered to?
Right.
But I agree with you. Everyone's been influenced by it.
Right.
Yeah, everyone.
So could you argue at this point that yes, you're right, that I suppose we can talk about Christianity in one way where it's preaching equality, but it actually doesn't practice equality. Um, could you not more so argue that that is the fault of the people, not the religion? I've heard religious people do
Yeah.
argue that, and that the actual obviously there are scriptures and books that have things in them that are horrible, and when you point that out, some people try and justify it, but some people admit that,
Mm.
humans wrote these things, and so humans are fallible and put their own
Yeah.
nastiness in, and then other humans pick up on that and use that as an excuse. But if you look at, well, I mean, I've not seen any nastiness surrounding Jesus, for example. So if you focus on
Mm.
what Jesus did and said, the only nastiness that I know of from him is when he went and trashed a market
Mm.
because he didn't agree with what they were doing, and that was a good nasty. That was good though. He was making a point, right? Apart from that, I don't know any other points. So if you're actually focusing on, in Christianity's case, on Jesus and what he
Mm.
didn't do, then you're going to get a pretty good way of living from that. But people can't accept that, so they come. You know what I mean? So do you think? Okay, my point, I guess, is religion the problem or are people the problem? Is what I'm trying to get to the bottom of here.
Well, I think fundamentally, people are the problem, because obviously, if there were no people, then religion wouldn't even exist anyway.
Mm,
Um, so I do think it fundamentally it's people that are the problem, but I also think some blame can be laid at the feet of the actual religions and the texts, because I mean, and this isn't just Christianity, this is basically any religious text. There may
mm,
be some that I'm unaware of that are very sort of crystal clear in every way, but pretty much every religious text has some small and large ambiguities,
yeah,
and sort of pretty important ones. And that is obviously, and humans, are just prone to fighting over things.
yeah,
And so I think some blame can be laid at the feet of the actual religion, because
mm,
if the religion was clearer in what it was for, then there wouldn't be as much room for people to actually disagree over all this stuff. Because if
right,
you look at, I mean, I think Christianity has something like 30,000 different,
yeah,
denominations or something, and then you've got massive divides in Islam and other religions. So
right.
I, I think people are probably most of the problem,
Hmm,
but because even non-religious people we see massive problems in. So it's just wherever humans go, there are some problems, or many
hmm,
problems, that we bring up.
yeah.
But I think there's some blame for the religions themselves as
For
well.
sure, yeah. It's probably, yeah, definitely. It'd be hard though. I mean, it would be hard to blame Jesus for horrible things that people do now. In the same way, it would be hard to blame Buddha for the things that people do now in Buddhists or Christians, because as far as I know, both
Mm,
of these individuals, these are probably the two religious figures that I know of that I don't believe have any um like evil, wrong, or wrongdoings. I don't know about as much about
mm,
Buddha as I do about Jesus, but
yeah.
someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe either of them has anything that's written down where it's like, the Buddha went and married a 9-year-old, or, you know, for example.
I wonder where you got that example from.
Or, you know, Jesus sent his men out and gave them permission to grape everybody, you know, which is another, again, both from the same place. So, you know, as far as I know, that when it comes to Christianity and Buddhism, those people in those religions have no excuse to be acting the way they're acting if they're acting badly, whereas others do. They actually do. Like the people that they subscribe to have done horrible things in the name of their religions, so they think they can do horrible things. And I think that's where there's a huge problem for sure.
True, but can you define a whole religion by one person who's part of that religion?
Because that is what they... If the religion... If Christianity was based and came from... Like, if Jesus is the overall, the savior, the Christian, the ultimate Christian, then of course the entire religion has to be based on one man. And the other one that we mentioned,
the Bible that was, but there was a bunch of the Bible that was written before he even existed.
Right, but then he came, and then everything that was before that moment was cast aside. That's what the Christians say. Like, from Jesus onwards, whatever he did and said is what is important. But that's different sects. There's different sects that will disagree with that, right? Yeah. But as far as I understand, it's that's what most of them believe, I suppose. I don't know if that's wrong or whatever, but Jesus is supposed to be the ultimate man and God in a lot of Christians' eyes. So, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know enough about the life of Jesus to be able to speak on it like in any informed way. But it, for the sake of argument, if you have a religion where there is one clear central figure that everyone should be following, and that person was or never did anything that could, you know,
just a proper legend,
be interpreted as bad. Yeah, then all of the blame is basically at the feet of the people, right? For like either misinterpreting it or willingly twisting it or all of that sort of stuff.
You know, Buddha was a big... you know Buddhism, right? And Buddha was into being kind to animals and all living beings and stuff like that, right? And non-violence was his thing, ahimsa. And he was very clear on that. And modern day Buddhists, they take that, they're like, right? They're like, oh, here, you know, ahimsa and non-violence. Okay, we don't do meat because obviously that's violence, and we don't do dairy, and we're vegans, plant-based. But if someone brings me the food and gives it to me, then I'm not part of the violence and I can eat it. That's how they loophole the Buddhist teachings. How sick is that?
Mate, some of it's worse than that. I mean, like the Buddhist center I go to, so it's mixed. So the actual center itself is vegan, right? Any food the center prepares, or, you know, biscuits they prepare in, like, you know, the tea time, all of the milks they have as part of the tea breaks and stuff, all of it's plant-based. They just recently opened a sort of cafe that they use to fundraise, you know, that's completely vegan. So the center itself is completely vegan, but it's such a mixed one, because even some of the Buddhists there who are ordained, and for anyone that doesn't know, you know, if you're a Buddhist and you're ordained, it basically just means like you've spent many years, you know, practicing meditation and all these things associated with Buddhism, and you finally are able to get this little, I forget what it's called, but it's a little bit of cloth you hang around you, right? So these are like the top dogs. So these are like the top dogs of their local Buddhist center and stuff. And I've spoken to a bunch of them at the center I sometimes go to, and some of them aren't even vegan, you know? So it's like, it's so true that even if you have a religion that has a central figure who very clearly preaches one thing, even the people who are like balls deep in that religion will not properly follow what they say.
It's true, man. You know, when I was in Sri Lanka, I had a tattoo of Buddha on my lower leg, on my calf, and I had people basically not threaten, but politely threaten that you're going to be in trouble if you don't cover that tattoo. These were people that I guarantee you were drinking, eating meat, you know, all the things that Buddha would not recommend. And I am there as a sober. I don't take drugs, I don't drink, and I'm vegan. And you're telling me that I'm basically going to get beat up because I'm disrespecting Buddha with a tattoo. When you disrespect Buddha with your entire life. And A police officer I even came over at one point and was like, listen, you are actually going to have to leave or cover it. Like, it's up to you.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
That's
It was
so
like, guys,
crazy.
you guys are ridiculous. You don't even care about Buddha. You don't even follow Buddha. I am more closely follow Buddha. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing, actually, you know, with Christians, because sometimes I wear that hat with the Ramm, right? Because my surname. And they say, oh, you're Satan, you're Satan. It's like, listen, mate, I am more aligned with Jesus, and I have been for the last 10 to 12 years of my life than you have been, like, ever. Trust me. I've been living more in line with Jesus now that I know more about him. Especially, I'm like, wow, with people who stand up for what is right and fight for the weak, like we do, animal rights people, we're far more aligned with Jesus than the average person who does nothing for no one and just works 9 till 5 and just takes their money and buys a car and looks after themselves. So it's like, you know, it's phenomenal. Anyway, this is
Well, do you think it's because people put more emphasis on buying into the beliefs rather than actually
Yes.
carrying out the practices
Absolutely.
that are being taught?
Absolutely.
You know?
And I've asked this question. I'm going to ask this question to more religious people when I get a chance, about if I don't believe in God, but I follow the footsteps of Jesus and live in the way that that Christians say I should live, will I still go to heaven? That's something I would absolutely love to know, right? And I would say, if they're logical, I would think it would be a yes, because regardless of what you believe, you did what was right, and that's what's important. Any actual peaceful, loving God who's sensible will see your actions and go, "Hey, you didn't believe in me, but high five, you did good anyway. Come on in."
I mean, if anything, if you're talking about a God that isn't completely self-centered, if anything, those people would be favored even more, right? Because it's like they've gotten to the same place or even a better place without the direct guidance of the actual God, right? Of, you know, praying to them or whatever.
Right, exactly.
You know?
And actually, this is where the conversation's gone here, to talk about, you know, people getting to the right place. So I actually saw a quick clip of a conversation again with Jordan Peterson talking to Sam Harris. And believe it or not, I'm not copying this conversation from them. I had these thoughts myself, and then I was watching a video and I was like, oh, they actually had this discussion too. So I just want to let you know, I'm not just ripping off their conversation.
You did it before it was cool.
Exactly. And so Sam Harris is obviously a massive atheist. And he's like, no, these fantasies need to stop. And Jordan Peterson is an ex-atheist, and he was saying, we need religion for the cohesion of society. People in large groups don't do good unless there is some kind of religion that binds them, and principles that bind them, and a story that binds them, right? And Sam Harris is like, we can get that without the story, without the fable. And Jordan Peterson's like, it has never been done, ever. And I'm telling you, speaking psychologically, speaking as like, because that's his profession, he was like, you cannot do it. There has to be a story that threads everyone together. There has to be a belief in something all-encompassing and an umbrella over us that we all have to believe in, or it doesn't work. And I was like, wow, this is a crazy conversation, because I've been on Sam Harris's side, and I have been moving more towards the other side, agreeing with Peterson on this, and see what you think when I explain why I agree with him more at this point, right?
Yeah.
So clearly we see society, more and more people are moving away from religion. This is obvious, right? And what's happening is they are replacing religion with other things that they're treating as a religion, because it seems to me that, this might come back to bite me in the ass, but it seems to me that humans can't live without religion. I don't think we can live without it. I think everybody needs
something that resembles it.
Exactly. We need something, whether it's a god or whether it's wokeness, whatever that means. So you define it as you will. You know what I mean. Veganism, carnivore, ancestral lifestyle, raw dieting, antinatalism, whatever it is.
Some sort of ideological group.
Exactly. We need something that we all subscribe to and come together, and that we have our sermons and we have our, you know what I mean? And so otherwise people, they lose the direction, they lose hope, and they end up in, with mental health issues and stuff, because they don't know their place in the world, and they starts to fall apart. And what's the point? They become nihilists, And as you see this when you go on social media, and you see how, this is me making, it's not a correlation or causation or whatever, but I'm seeing, more and more people these days are more sad and more angry and more depressed. And there's a trend that there's religions becoming less popular and people aren't going to church and they're not going with their communities and they're not bound by that. They're becoming more siloed and alone, and they're being, horrible to each other. And if you just, like I said, you go on Twitter and you see, where all that's happening. So that's one thing. The other problem I see with now, what's the problem with replacing religion? This is a good one. What's the problem with replacing religion with antinatalism or veganism or ancestral diet lifestyle? Just put ethics aside, right? Whatever you've because I know we know why we're against this carnivore ancestral. It's about animals, but for today we're not talking about that, right? We know that's wrong.
Just some sort of group identity, sort of.
Exactly, right? So when these things, so what's the problem with subscribing to that instead, right? Well, the problem is these are new modern ideas that have come around in the last not that long, right? These ideas are not established, and they're not religions. They're untested as religions, and they often lead to issues and people blindly subscribing to them, to these ideas, ignorantly subscribing to them, and that can be potentially quite harmful for living any kind of meaningful life. I've seen multiple examples of this within the vegan world, where I've seen this thing coming up. I'll give you an example where, so a popular influencer who we both know, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to drag it all in, but he's getting criticized because he said there is nothing wrong with picking up a feather from the road, and if you wanted to use it as decoration, you use it as decoration, right? I don't see a problem with that. The vegans who have religiously devoted themselves to the idea of veganism to the point where it's illogical are saying that that's exploitation and you shouldn't do that simply because that feather is not yours to take. And that's it. Yeah. There's no logic to it. It's just an ideology, right? This is a problem. This is leading us down a path where it's just pure ideological nonsense. And it's not cohesive. It's not helping them. It's not helping anyone. So, this is kind of where these kinds of new religious kind of ideas lead to, right? So what do you think about all of that?
Well, I think it's like something, I'm not going to get the quote like exactly word for word, but it's something Thomas Sowell said. He said, like, there's no solutions in the world. There's only trade-offs, right?
Right.
And it's the same with religion, because, religion historically has been a glue that has held different societies together. But it's also made different societies clash with each other as well, right?
Yeah.
And divide. And you see the same thing with things like, veganism or antinatalism or like, progressivism or wokeism, however you want to put it. You have the same things of like people bind around these ideas and form some sort of a community, but it also leads them to fight and infight. And it seems like now it's a weird one because maybe we perceive these new communities like veganism or antinatalism as being more fractious as religious communities because we're actually in them. But maybe if we were in religious communities, they would also be equally as fractious, right? I mean, the dividing lines, the fault lines would be different, but maybe we just don't see it as often because we're not in those groups. But I would say, given that these communities are new. I mean, I don't think veganism or antinatalism are new ideas. They've been around for thousands of years. In fact, I think they've both been around before even Christianity came about.
It's more that they're new as they're not
in terms of communities.
They're not designed or built as replacements for religion, yet they're being treated as such. So antinatalism and veganism and the carnivore diet or whatever, the raw dieting, whatever these things, pick your poison, right? They are not suitable for prescribing how somebody should live their life. That's not what their goal is. They deal with one specific aspect of your life.
Exactly.
Right. But then people are treating them as if this is why you find
sort of all encompassing.
Exactly. And this is why you find someone meets you as an antinatalist and they're an antinatalist and they find out that you have other views. They maybe find out that you're like, oh, I kind of like Joe Rogan and I also like listen to this right-wing podcast over here. These guys, the Lotus Eaters, right? And then all of a sudden, their image of you is shattered because they thought, you're an antinatalist, I'm an antinatalist, you're going to think the same as me. And then maybe they're actually super, super, super far left and they're against all of that stuff. And now they think you're evil and it hurts them. And it's the same with vegans when we meet other vegans. But because antinatalism and veganism, they don't prescribe your entire world. They only prescribe one tiny, well, not tiny, but one fraction of it.
No,
right?
I get that. So it's like we're forming. So religion has been around, or different religions have been around for different lengths of time. But all of the major religions nowadays have been around for a significant amount of time. And given they've been around this amount of time, like that, it's like what do you call it? Survivorship bias. Like if these religions weren't going to be cohesive in terms of community building, they wouldn't have lasted this long. So almost by definition, given that they've been around this long, they're going to be the types of ideas that are going to form communities that stick around, right? And that's probably because, like you said, they address all parts of your life. Like they have an answer for now. You may think these answers are wrong. Personally, I think these answers are wrong, but they at least provide an answer to the meaning of life. Where did the universe come from? What are the basic behaviors that you should be engaging in? What is ethics? How do you relate to men? How do you relate to women? How do you relate to children? All of this sort of stuff, religion has an answer. But veganism, it's one ethical stance on one thing that you will come into contact in your life. Veganism doesn't give you an answer about where the universe came from and stuff like this. So it's like,
or the gym,
like you were saying,
becoming a bodybuilder, like people, they subscribe to that and they have all that. That doesn't give you a way of where do your ethics come from there? Like, you know what I mean? But people are definitely.
So it's like, so it's like you're saying, we're trying to build communities around things that actually aren't, they're not going to be able to sustain long-term communities.
No. And not only that, when you're dealing with a population of millions, you're not going to have millions of people into bodybuilding or veganism, or it's all going to be a couple 100,000 into all different stuff. So how are you ever going to be a cohesive community with millions of people getting on without much friction and much conflict if you don't have something that binds you all at the top? And this is where in the past religion has come in and worked pretty well, and these days it is completely the opposite. I mean, there are still obviously big factions of people that have that community based on the religion, but as far as I'm aware, it used to be most people were bound by that. Most people were had a cohesion with their communities and their societies, mostly based on the religion they all followed. And yeah, of course, there's always going to be extremists that have hatred for others, but that wasn't never the majority, right?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends what you mean by hatred for others. So, you'll have examples where, for example, if a society, the West is not, well, at least the UK is not a good example, because our societies, whilst they're influenced by religion, it's not like the predominant thing in people's lives. But in other countries where religion is still a predominant thing in the country, so for example, you have the Middle East with Islam, but you also have, places like where was it that recently, is it Uganda that recently made being gay illegal, right? I think it was Uganda. I might be getting that wrong, but it was some sub-Saharan Africa, some Saharan African country. And so, and I'm pretty sure the vote to make being gay illegal in Uganda was unanimous, or there was one person who voted against it. So it does depend what you mean by hatred, right? Because that is religion setting a societal norm that is going to be completely discriminatory and probably cause a lot of violence towards a vulnerable minority.
Well, this brings us back round again to the core issue there. That is it the people or the religion that caused that? They did it in the name of the religion, but okay, if it's Christianity, wait, did Jesus say love thy neighbor, or did he say make it illegal for certain people to love certain people? I don't believe those words ever came out of his mouth. And if he was here now, this is an interesting question. So with Christians, you ask them, how would Jesus kill an animal? And they can't answer it because they're like, oh God, I don't think, it's a horrible thing to imagine Jesus killing an animal. Okay, then. Okay. What would Jesus do to a gay couple then? Let's ask them that. What would he do?
Join in.
What would he do though? Would he throw them in jail? That doesn't sound very Christ-like. Would he kill them and send them to hell? That doesn't sound very Christ-like. For what? What are they doing that's such an abomination? They
even,
you know?
I think, sorry, yeah. I think, like, again, speaking from a place of ignorance, even worst case scenario, I think the worst thing Jesus would do with a gay couple is
make them straight. Just there you go. He's like, now you're straight.
Yeah,
there we go.
I've turned water into wine, and here's my next trick.
You know, that's probably the best answer someone could give. He'd make them straight, and then you'd be like,
well,
at least at least it didn't hurt them.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to say is the worst thing I can think that he would do is like forgive them, basically,
right?
Which
is weird.
Still implies
that they're doing something wrong.
Still implies they're doing something wrong, which I disagree with. But he would take the approach of, this is something that, from a Christian point of view is maybe seen as wrong, but I preach a message of forgiveness.
But he wouldn't. But Jesus wouldn't do that though, because he wouldn't be. There's nothing to forgive. He'd be like, yeah, from a Christian point of view, or what his point of view, you mean? Because he's the one that defines what Christianity is, right? So from my point of view, what you're doing is totally wrong. Why is it wrong, Jesus? It just that's not meant to go there. I don't know, right? I don't make the. You actually do make the rules, bro. So like, can you explain exactly what the problem is? It's just something going into a hole, and like they love each other, right? And wait a minute, didn't you create them this way? Isn't this something that you've put in their heads, that you've made them want each other? Like, so why now are you forgiving them? You need to be apologizing to yourself if you've got a problem, or like asking for apologies for yourself, because you did it. You made them like that. So why do they have to suffer for it? That makes no bloody sense. Anyway, this is a conversation with Jesus that we're having here. That's probably,
but this is.
I'll take it up with him when we meet up. In like hopefully in like 80 years.
I just
what's going on?
Well, I'm trying to get like my words out. I'm just thinking like, so with the, well. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So let's go back.
Can you just give me a taster of what you wanted to say, and then we can decide?
No, the thing is what I was going to say was, again, probably coming from a place of ignorance, because I haven't read the Bible or anything, but doesn't it say somewhere in the Bible that if a man lies with another man, that his blood should be spilt? But was that in the Old Testament?
I don't know which testament it's in, and I don't really think it matters if someone quotes that, because I'd just say, yeah, sure, great. What would Jesus do? And then they're going to say, oh, yeah, he'd spill their blood. Really, would he? Would Jesus spill their blood? I don't think so. So why don't you, instead of reading these texts that were written by men, why don't you focus on the stories about Jesus and what he would and wouldn't do, based on him being the most compassionate, loving person that ever existed, and literally God in some people's eyes. So yeah, okay, the book says this. Okay, what would Jesus do? That's all I'd ask them. And if they say he'd kill, then I'd be like, great. So your savior is a killer. Yeah. Like that doesn't seem right, But
this comes back to the sort of laying some of the blame at the feet of religion, right? Because if there's stuff that's said in the Bible that conflicts with what the core sort of guiding person would do,
mate,
you can see why disagreement
this is the fault of men again, though. It's the fault of people again, because the Bible, both New Testament and Old Testament, is rife with contradictions. Because it was written over thousands of years by hundreds of people, and all these people had their own bullshit to put in it, right? So
no, I get what you mean, but then if we're going to define it like that, then everything is the fault of people, because all religions were made by people, right? So at some point we've got to say, even though these religions were made by people, it is a core part of the text, and so we can lay the blame at the feet of the religion itself, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. However,
because otherwise, the
distinction here is right, that most religions have a core person that you should aspire to be like. Okay, Jesus, Buddha.
Well, most religions nowadays, because most religions overall have actually been monotheistic.
I'm talking about now. I'm talking about right now.
Right,
I'm talking about now. I'm not talking about any past ones. So I'm talking about now. So you got Jesus or Buddha, for example. Let's use two examples. So you got these two. Doesn't matter whatever text was written about what you should or shouldn't do. It's about what they did or didn't do. Now, like if the Bible says like, oh, you should spill the blood of gay people, but Jesus was known as being such an empathetic, compassionate person, that's a contradiction. And Jesus overrides anything surely Jesus overrides anything written down in the Bible, right? Like other stories. Surely, if he is the savior, whatever his behavior is takes precedent, right? So to me, I don't care what the bloody hell's written in it. I'm focusing, if I'm going to be a Christian, I'm focusing on, right, okay, what would Jesus do? Literally, that's what I'm asking 100 times a day, right? Oh, these people are asking me, they come to the church, they say, hey, look, we have feelings for each other, but we're both men, and we don't want to know if we're going to hell, like what's going to happen. What would Jesus say? Jesus would say that as long as you're not harming anybody, as long as you live a life that is true to yourself and loving and caring, and you help your friends and you help your neighbors and you give back to your communities and you don't hurt anybody, of course you're going to heaven. That's what Jesus would say, right? So there's your answer. You know what I mean? That's how. But people, it's the people that are the problem again, in my opinion, because they wrote the crap, and then other people follow the crap because they find gay people disgusting. It's nothing to do with the religion. They have, look.
They just have sort of like some sort of personal issue.
It's like, okay, you're. I don't want to get deep here, but like, you consider yourself. Are you like 100% straight?
Yeah, I've never had any.
Right. Okay. Same. I appreciate, a good male form, like muscles and stuff. Like, well done. But like
in a sort of asexual
right,
way,
but wouldn't want it in my mouth. Right. So we're in the same boat. But so you're probably with me on this, that the first time you saw two men kissing, you probably had an aversion to it. You probably felt like, and you're like, oh my God, right? It's natural to feel that way about things that are, in your eyes, different. Okay, like when you first saw somebody with like a really bad physical disability or deformity, you had the same reaction most likely, especially if you were younger. It freaks you out. And it's not like they're not freaks. It's your problem because you're used to a certain thing and they look different or act different.
Yeah.
It's your problem, not theirs, right? So let's be clear. So, but some people never get over that. They hold on to that forever. And then they try to use religion to justify that disgusted feeling they have rather than just getting over it. That's what I think is happening with all religions that are against, for example, gay people, or some of them are now speaking up against trans people. It's like, look, I get it. You're freaked out. You're uncomfortable. You're scared of what you don't understand. I get it. It's normal to have those feelings, but don't try and make it like a moral thing. Like, just admit that you're a bit, try and learn, maybe spend some time with these people, try and understand them so that you're not as freaked out by it. That's how you deal with it, Same as racism too. Same as racism. People look different to you, right? It's scary. I agree. It is scary until you start making friends of people of different ethnicities. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. They're just people like me. There's no, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I have another question, but I'll save it until either the end of the stream if we want to do it on stream, or we can do it after, because I don't want to I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of Christianity.
It's all right. And by the way, guys, I just want to let everybody know watching, Robin just sent through a tip with a comment, but I'm going to do them at the end, okay? We'll do them at the end. Any tips that you send, any super chats that you send, we'll respond to all of them at the end so we can keep the flow going. Thank you for the tip, by the way.
So I had a quick question for you. So you are sort of moving more towards the sort of identifying as a sort of cultural Christian, right? Like you made a video about it.
I was always a cultural Christian because I celebrate all the Christian holidays, but now it's more in a
having an acceptance of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people, like, they're influenced by it, but they don't really sort of acknowledge it as a thing they are, or something like that.
I've gone from being an anti-theist to an atheist that more closer to like a Christian atheist or a secular Christian. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, given that both of us, at least on the question of like, does a God exist, ignoring all the sort of cultural stuff, both of us are on the sort of atheist side, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, keeping that in mind, and also keeping in mind the fact that I don't want to speak for you, but I think we're pretty similar in this respect, that we were both raised in the same country. We were both raised with the same sort of, general cultural background of like Christian, Western sort of type stuff. But both of us the the core thing in our lives, we're preoccupied by something that's actually outside of that. So with you, it's veganism. With me, it's sort of veganism slash antinatalism, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of what we, put out there publicly and think about a lot as
Mm.
individuals. So we clearly both, whilst we still have connections with cultural Christianity, we clearly both sort of spend most of our time thinking about something else.
Mm.
Where do you think we get our sense of meaning, and why have we been able to do it successfully outside of living in a religion day to day?
So, for me personally, if I'm being completely honest with myself, it's a combination of two things. When I was, well, I've always been raised with compassion for animals. That's how my mum raised
Yeah.
me. She raised me showing me animals, we rescued animals off the street, like hedgehogs, pigeons, injured.
Mm,
We'd take them home. And I was always told never, ever leave an animal. If you see an injured animal, my mum raised me this way, never, ever leave them on the street. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care where you are.
mm,
You stop and you call me, or you pick them up, you get them out of danger. This is incredibly important. They are helpless. They need your help. They're vulnerable. And that was instilled in me from a young age by my
yeah.
mum. And when I was at school first learning about Jesus, I started to see some similarities there, in that was what was being taught about him. He was also not turning his back on the needy, and it was all about being generous and charitable. And I guess the idea of charity probably even comes from a lot for a lot of Christians. The idea of being charitable comes from trying to follow
Mm,
Jesus. I'm 100% sure of that, because he was very charitable, loving and caring with people who others shunned. There was a lot of the stories about where people all like reject and expel someone, and then he's the only one who will give them time and stuff like that. And it
mm,
really, I was really impressed by it. So I think both of these two things kind of combined together to create me in the where I ended up actually wanting to go out and make a difference in the world for animals,
mm,
with most of the inspiration coming from my mum, I suppose. But I suppose she wasn't necessarily, she did some activism, but she wasn't like an activist. I suppose
mm,
that drive came from possibly from the religious side then, because of there was someone, that was in an early part of my life who did that, and that was Jesus, right? Learning about him, going
mm.
out and actually trying to make a difference in the world. So that's, I mean, I can't say 100% whether that's the case or not, but if I was going to try and pin it down, they're probably the two larger influences from
Mm.
my childhood to now. Yeah.
Yeah. But what stops you from descending into the things that we see? So the things you listed at the start,
Yeah.
people, there's an increase in poor mental health, people feeling lonely, people feeling lost, maybe people feeling like, if they become an atheist, they lose that contact with something, saying that there's inherent sort of cosmic meaning in
Right.
their lives or something.
Mm.
What stops you from falling afoul of those things? Because I don't think either of us have fallen like both of us are, everyone has their issues, that come up here and there, but like neither of us are having like existential
No.
crises, or we're not descending into madness or anything. So why have we not been captured by these
To
things?
be honest with you, I like, you speak for yourself when you say that there's not been any, for you, that you've not had any kind of whatever crisis or whatever, or you've not had those
Mm,
kinds of moments. But then why would you? No offense, but you're still very much on the beginnings of your journey into this kind of world of putting yourself out there
mm,
and fighting for what's good. Like, and you're quite young, so you're quite resilient too. But after, I've been at this since 2016, 2017, and I've been in really, really bad places, and I've said to Annie multiple times, like, how wonderful would it be to actually believe in religion, because I would really, really, I could do with that right now. I kind of
mm,
wish that I was a believer so that I could deal with what I'm going through. And I've had that moment multiple times. And I'm still not a
mm,
believer in God, by the way, but I wish I did believe in God, because
mm,
trust me, how would have made things so much easier. And you'll probably go through this as well. Like, after you've been at this kind of thing for years, you'll go, oh God, it would be so easy if I could just believe in God and I could believe that I'm on the righteous path, and then I could keep going.
mm,
But instead, you have to deal with the brutal, cold reality of the situation, and that can be overwhelming. Since I started to like learn more about Jesus, and since I watched Christspiracy, the documentary especially, honestly, when I watched that documentary and I learned more about Jesus, I felt this kind of weight lift off me, that like, it was like, oh my God, this feels really good to know that I'm on the same path as he was. And this documentary really nails that home, that of the kind of person he was and what he did, and specifically with regarding animals. And it was like, oh wow, okay, that feels amazing. And it kind of, it relighted this thing in me to be like, oh, I actually want to be more like him now, like a lot more. And then how that's helped me now is, if I'm about to be nasty to somebody online, or about to kind of, I don't know, feel really, really bad, knowing that I'm trying to be like that helps to keep me on track and keep me positive. Whereas before I had nothing to keep me on track. I had nothing to stay positive. And it's just me in my brain, and that's it. But now it's me in my brain and trying to be Jesus-like. And that little thing there is really helpful to know there was a guy thousands of years ago who literally died for what he believed in, and that what I'm doing is similar to him, you know? So that's not really religious, I suppose, is it, in a way? Because it's more...
It's just having sort of like an idol that you can aspire to be like. Well, I don't know if idol is the right word, but a role model that you can aspire to be like.
It's like a role model. It's more than that, because of obviously all of the lore and the myth around, you know, him, the man. Like, it makes things more... And that so many people are so... It's hard to explain without going into some kind of weird woo-woo stuff, to be honest with you. And I don't even buy into the woo-woo stuff. It's kind of even hard for me to put into words now. I mean, it sounds kind of lame as it comes out of my mouth. But I suppose when doing the stuff that I'm doing, having this really, really helps. And it doesn't harm anyone, right? And this is what this is kind of what I'm trying to get at, is that if that's your religion, if what I've just described is how you're doing religion, isn't that amazing? Shouldn't everybody do that? That is, in my eyes, the perfect way to be a religious person. To go, hey, Jesus, that's the guy. I'm going to be like him. Full stop. That's it. That's it. Your whole life is devoted to that. You're going to have a great life. You're going to be a great person. You're going to love everybody, and everyone's going to love you. And any disagreements you have or any conflicts you have are going to be dealt with fairly and reasonably if you can try and be like that. So that's surely that's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, I think like so like you were saying, for me, we're in like slightly different situations if you're framing it in terms of like going out and promoting a message or something like that. But there's also many people, and you'll know, I would assume you'd know a bunch of them, like in the UK is not, you know, an extremely religious country anymore.
No.
There are many people who are just sort of, they wouldn't even necessarily call themselves atheists, they just don't concern themselves with religion. You know, and when I was growing up, like there were many people like this. They didn't really have any sort of need for religion. Maybe they benefited, well, they would have benefited from, if religion is providing some sort of stability to the society at large, obviously they're going to benefit from that.
Right.
But if in their day-to-day life, religion didn't show up at all. And these people seem to, you know, like it didn't seem to have any negative impact on them.
Well, I think it does.
And it could be...
I think it does. Right?
Well, the thing I was going to say was that it could be because there are other things that can fill the place of religion, right? So I could definitely imagine if so this is going to be complete wild speculation that we don't have any evidence for, but I want to ask you a question. If we had a world where no one was religious, but everyone lived in small communities and had, you know, good social networks, friends, you know, family units, all this sort of stuff.
Right.
Would that be more cohesive and a better place to live than a world where everyone was religious, but we lived in a completely atomized society? People didn't necessarily have family units. Maybe it was an antinatalist, not an antinatalist in an ethical way, but just no one had kids.
So there's only one way. The only way that your thing here can work is if people make, I think is it called transhumanism? If they make that their religion, then yes, that's atomized. That's, I only care about myself. I only want to improve myself. I want to make my life easier and easier with more and more technology. And I don't care about any of the things that are meaningful anymore. I just want to have, you know, then yeah, that's the only scenario where that could happen. But the other one where you were talking about with it's religionless, but there's cohesive units and family units and everything's. Well, okay, in this scenario you've given, then are people still, are they just obsessed with their own family and they don't care about anybody else, and they're not doing charity, and they're not actually giving up their time and money to help others in need? Because I can imagine a world where there's no religion, but people have family units, but they're still just as selfish as before, just with their own family. I think what religion does for a lot of people is it pushes them to actually go and be better and do better for the world, not just for themselves.
True, but I think it's really because we only have one world and it's only played out in one way. It's really hard to tell, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell because there are many things. So the things that you identified about, being lonely, increase in mental health, people seem
Depression,
to be becoming
anxiety.
increasingly irrational about certain
Selfish.
things, very tribalistic.
Incredibly selfish.
Exactly. Like, this is something that's been identified that's sort of happening more recently, or maybe we're just being more exposed to these people because we have stuff like social media. But it's like there's been a decline in religion in some countries, generally Western countries, but it's happened at the same time as many other things, like a rise in social media. We've become just generally more interconnected as society, so cultures are clashing a lot more and stuff like that. We live in like a globalized world. People, well, not really that one, but like you have the decline of families as well. So people are having less children.
It's all of this together,
Exactly. So it's like it's super hard to pick out what is the decline of religion responsible for, and what are the other ones
But
responsible
hold up,
for? Because
I think they're linked. I don't think you can take them apart. Like, people, look, if people were still treating their religion seriously, and I keep referring to the West because that's where we're from, right? But it can be any religion, basically. If you have a religion that's thousands of years old, that requires you to go into a place with other people and sing songs or recite things that are inspirational and loving and caring together. It's almost like, these modern religions, these spiritual modern kind of religion, I don't know what you call them, pseudo religions or whatever, where they come together and they do positive affirmations together while burning incense.
Sort of woo woo.
Right,
stuff.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So basically, what people are like, I'm not religion. I do this stuff. I do this alternative stuff. It's like, it's not alternative at all. It is literally religion with extra steps. It's just Christianity with extra steps. What do you do when you go to church? You sing songs, and basically they're all positive affirmations about heaven, about love, and about peace, and there's incense, and then there's like, and then but instead you go to a yoga studio, and what do? Positive affirmations about the sun, and it's like, it's literally the same thing, just without Jesus and without God, right? So anyway, but my point being, these things are linked, that people, family units breaking apart, people being extra selfish, people being extra depressed, people spending more time online and less time doing things for their community. If people still went to these places on a weekly basis, got together, dressed up nicely, sat next to people that from their community who they don't see very often, maybe sang songs for an hour, right? And then had the little bit afterwards where they all say hello and like, oh, how's your family? Blah, 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 blah. If they did that every week, you can't tell me that there wouldn't be better cohesion. You can't tell me that they wouldn't be more selfless. They're more interested in their neighbor and what's going on in their life. How can we help you? How can we help others? I feel like these behaviors help us. What you go to church, sing songs, and really get into it, and then go home and call someone a whatever on the internet.
No, I agree with that. I think, like.
So I'm saying it's linked. I'm saying it's all. I don't think you can take it apart and blame one individual thing. I think a huge thing to blame here is the lack of religion that's led to all the problems you listed. I think it absolutely is a huge part of that. I don't know if it's the only part, but it's a huge part of it, I think.
Yeah, true. I guess so. Here's another question. So, I don't know how the future is going to go, if we're going to get more or less religious, because the more religious countries, I don't know. It's a hard one. Like, no one knows how the future is going to be, right? And especially how it's going to be in terms of religion in the future.
I think I do.
And how dominant it's going to be.
I think I have an
Go
idea,
on, then.
To be honest.
Okay, let's make a prediction for, should we go 100 years time? What do you think religion will look like in 100 years?
I think that the problems we're gonna face in the future are going to be far worse than any problems religion has caused in the past because of a lack of it. And this is my prediction, right? Because people will talk about the horrors religion has caused, and I used to be one of those people. I believe that the world would have been worse off without it at this point. I actually think it would have been more violent without it than it has been with it. I think we would have found more reasons to hurt each other, and I think we would have done it in more horrific ways than we have done. I think religion has limited the amount we hurt each other and limited the ways that we do it, even though it's been the cause of it. I feel like that at this point. And obviously, I can't say, like you said earlier, this is the world as it panned out. It's kind of the same with capitalism. It's like, hey, we ended up in a capitalist society. Nobody can say that, oh, if we rewind the clock and did it communist, they unless you do that, you don't know if it was better or worse.
Yeah,
We're never going to know, right? But it could be worse. This is the thing. It could be worse. The anti-capitalists need to kind of realize that, like, if you do away with it, the replacement could actually be worse than what we have now. And that needs to be a consideration. And I think this is a reality that we're going to find out when it comes to religion, because we are doing away with it. It is happening. It is declining. The only ones that are really into it are the kinds of people that, unfortunately, that most people don't want to associate with. Hardcore, conservatives, people who are stuck in most people's eyes 50 years ago. They're becoming less and less cool, right? People do not want to be involved with them. So it is going to go away. And what's going to replace it, in my opinion, is going to be selfishness. It's going to be obsession with one's own interests, right? It's going to be obsession with material possessions, with making as much money as possible, and charity is going to go out the window. I think people being charitable is going to get even less and less and less and less, and everyone's going to. I think this is what's going to be replaced. It's going to be a religion of I only care about me and my family. I think that's going to replace the traditional religion. It's going to be materialism and these things, or other things, and as well as that, other things that are going to come in and act as replacements, and they are not suitable. Like, for example, veganism or progressivism or raw dieting or the gym. These things are going to come in and try and replace it, and that's just going to make everything so much worse, because they're also, a lot of these are very selfish things because people are using them as an identity, even though veganism is selfless for animals.
Well, they're just not designed to be a life guide, right?
No, they're not designed to be a life guide, and they're all, even though obviously veganism for us people who go out there and do work and try and change the world, for a lot of people it truly is about them. They are vegan and it's about them. It's an inward looking thing that they're doing, like, I changed. Whereas religions, they're all tending to be about the world and like, what can we bring to the world? We're going to change the world. We're going to do good by others. They're outwardly looking. Whereas, like, modern religions, spirituality, and these other ones, they're all inward looking. They're all, you are the most important thing here. And if we have more and more and more of that, what kind of world are we going to have? Well, it's the one I just described. It's going to be a nightmare. It already is, dude.
Yeah,
We're already in it. It already is a nightmare.
Well, I mean, we've got to remember that we're speaking from a bit of a bubble, right? Like, the majority of the world is still conservative religious. Like, all of the African continent.
Okay, I'm talking about the West. Okay, but the majority of the world, when you consider, like...
I know, but when we're talking about the future, you've got to encompass the whole world, right? Like, so I think that and again, preface, like, no one actually knows what the future is going to be like, but I think it could be there could be a significant chance that we become more religious in the future, because the places with the highest birth rates are more religious places, right?
Okay. So you mean as a species, right? Okay. Like, as the population
as a species, yeah. So, like, the countries that tend to be less religious, like the West or South Korea, there are some exceptions. Like, Italy is still relatively religious as far as I'm aware, but their birth rate is very low. So, but the places with the highest birth rates are sub-Saharan Africa, and which is very religious, and I mean, Israel has quite a high birth rate, but that specifically is their sort of more orthodox Jewish community. So the more religious people are, they tend to have more kids than people who are more sort of atheist secular. So in the future we could live in a world where it's more religious.
Here's why I don't agree with you here. I think you're wrong,
Yeah.
because the world, the most influential parts of the world, the ones with all the money, the ones with all the technology, the ones with all the influence on society and movies and, TV,
Yeah.
they're mostly atheists now, right? Or they're not religious for sure. So yes, religious families will have kids, but how many of those kids are going to actually grow up and be religious? Each generation is going to be less and less, even including
Well,
those people that you're talking about, I think.
yes, but you've also got to think. So the most culturally like influential country in the world is America. It's still pretty religious, even though places like TikTok or Instagram,
Mm,
uh, and also like places like Hollywood, they don't really carry sort of like significantly religious like messaging or stories or anything.
mm,
The country as a whole is still pretty religious, and with the uprise, I wouldn't be surprised if America becomes more religious in the future, because one, there's a lot of immigration into America,
hmm.
and two, um, like there's going to be at least at some point a massive swing back against progressivism, which already seems to be
Yeah,
starting,
yeah.
and that tends to be a more religious, um, more religious group.
Hmm.
But also, you've got to remember, like the countries that are culturally influential now are culturally influential now.
Hmm.
You've got the rise of places like Iran, or places like Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
Nigeria is really up and coming. China's a bit different. I mean, China's very like influential, but it's not religious, so that's a bit different. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But
Oh yeah, that's
I could
sorry. This
definitely,
was another thing I
yeah,
didn't actually mention. So I think we've made it pretty clear throughout this podcast that some religions are better than others.
mm,
I think any religion that prescribes its members to have the right to kill others or grape them, or if their savior wanted that, then
mm,
you probably got an issue. And this is another issue that I missed out on, actually. One of the
mm,
issues, we don't only have the risks of untested and kind of religions and things that to replace religion that aren't so good for it, like we talked about already. We also have the prospect of other religions becoming more popular in places that were
mm,
historically Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or Hindu,
mm.
and the world would be significantly worse off if that happened. I think we can both agree.
Yeah, it would depend on the religion, but if we're both thinking of the same one, then yeah, I agree with that.
I
Yeah.
think it's pretty damn obvious that the world would be worse off if that one was in charge. Looking
Mm,
at what happens in the countries where they are in charge, I think we're obviously we're not talking about a population here, but we're talking about the people that control
mm,
some of these places in the name of religion. It probably is not in the best interests of the world population that certain religions and certain religious figures take over, religious powers take over, right? So that's another thing. We're leaving with the downfall of religion in the West and other parts of the world, with downfall of Buddhism, Christianity, and Judaism, and with people being less and less interested in those and Hinduism, it leaves a vacuum to be filled by what we've already discussed: progressivism, dieting, gym, things that are not suitable, and also other religions, which would be significantly worse off for
mm.
so yeah. So I mean, the reason I'm making these points is, I'm not about to start some crusade to bring back Christianity or something like that. It's more like
Bring back Jesus, the second coming.
yeah, it's more kind of like in my head, it's more like that I've had a bit of a turnaround and become a little bit more sympathetic to, specifically actually to Christians in the West, more so, in that they make some pretty good points when it comes to some of these things I've mentioned here. And also I kind of had these thoughts myself of, without this, what is there? And the answer is, it's pretty dire, actually. It's probably, what is it? The better the devil you know. Like, Christianity's not perfect, but it's probably better than the replacements. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
kind of like that. Like the same with capitalism, I suppose. Yes, it's not perfect and it has its issues, but we just go off into the darkness. It's like, what comes next?
mm,
Dunno. I've never had a capitalist actually be able to fully explain that to me, an anti-capitalist explain that to me. Like, okay, yeah, so I'm with you. What happens when it all ends? What do we replace it with? And how do you know it's going to be better? They have no idea. You know what I mean? So, but in this case, we know what happens, right? We actually know what happens if there's a death of Christianity in the West, for example. We know what comes. So, do we want that?
Yeah. So how do you? So, it does seem like the population of atheists is going to grow.
Huh.
Now, is it? I don't know. Is it going to grow as fast as certain like religious populations? Who knows? But if the places that have become less religious become even less religious, what do you think we can replace it with? Like, what are there any, as you see it, are there any viable alternatives? So let's think about it. Like, so what are the things that make religion something that has been able to exist throughout the centuries, right? So it gives you some sort of answer to meaning in life and, you know, what is the purpose of all of this?
Right.
There's community, there's certain practices and ethics that it makes you live by. Is there anything else that you can see that fills those sorts of shoes?
Every attempt at this has failed spectacularly from my knowledge. You know, like I wasn't the Soviet Union an attempt at that?
I don't know. I know they were very anti-religion.
Yeah, and look what happened there. You know what I mean? Look at all these failed sects of secular people where they are cults. They're basically what you end up with is cults, and you end up with leaders who, you know, because flat hierarchies don't work. We know that, right? There has to be a leader of whatever thing you've decided you're gonna follow, and power corrupts people, so it always goes to crap. You know, it always ends up as a nightmare.
One thing I do want to say though is that so there are a lot of examples of societies or sort of groups, communities that have tried something other than religion, and it's gone pear-shaped, right?
Yeah,
to put it lightly. In some
millions
cases.
dead. Yeah.
In the case of the Soviet Union, it just went like bread-shaped or dirt-shaped.
Yeah, people going out on killing sprees in Hollywood, stuff like that, right? Yeah, it all goes to crap.
Now, I think that is a valid observation, but what we've also got to bear in mind is that the vast majority of the societies in the world that have failed have been religious, right? Because all of the societies in the past that failed, they were all religious. I can't think of one example if you go back, say 500 years, all of the societies that failed before that, which is many, 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 many.
What do you mean societies? They would have all been religious. You're talking about what do you civilizations? You mean, or like what are you getting?
Yeah,
at?
Civilizations. Like you have, you know, places like the Roman Empire or the Ottoman Empire. Like they all leave their legacies, but as a coherent civilization, they've all failed. So you got the Romans, the Ottomans. There will be many, many kingdoms in Asia and Africa that have all failed.
But wait, didn't the Roman Empire fail because Christianity took over? Is that not what happened?
Yeah, but like,
what was the Romans? What was the Romans' religion before Christianity? Because I thought they were just all about. I thought they were secular. I thought they were about emperors and stuff, and that's why it fell apart.
No, they had gods. I'm pretty sure. Let me look up.
I'm not sure about that, dude.
So the Roman Empire was primarily polytheistic, which meant that people recognized and worshipped multiple gods and goddesses. But there were also monotheistic religions within the empire, such as Judaism and early Christianity.
Yeah. So I don't know enough about why it failed, but I'd be interested to know that. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's for sure. I guess most civilizations that have come and gone have had religion. Okay, but I guess it depends on how they came and went. Like if it was just a passing of time and then it evolved into a new religion, I wouldn't call that a failure. If it ended in abject poverty, starvation, and death, then that would be the failure. Yeah. Then so I'd be curious to know how many of the civilizations literally imploded and ended up with like a complete and utter disaster versus that they just faded out. Like that's what I'd be
morphed into something.
Morphed into something else. Exactly. I'd be more curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've no idea, and also,
just two historians having a chit chat.
But also, like, we don't know how. Like, at some point, all the civilizations that exist today
Mm,
will likely be gone, and something else will replace them. We don't know exactly how that's going to happen. Like, we
no.
may all go out in like a nuclear holocaust, or it may just be that there's
It's like
just
you
like
don't want
completely.
to get monetized. It's like your
Oh,
aim is to have the video, held
I
back.
got comfortable, and also I'm so used to just because I'm just looking at Zencaster. I like, yeah. Anyway, I mean,
It's fine. No, yeah. Lawrence, yeah, someone's saying you're blurry. I've just noticed, is your focus set properly on your camera?
yeah, I've got the light on my
No,
face.
focus. I think the focus is off.
Yeah,
Tap on your
I don't
face,
think so. I can
maybe.
see my face in the. I mean, maybe it's Zencaster.
All right,
But
whatever. It doesn't matter. Someone said you're blurry. I noticed it too. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So all right. Where are we up to? So I guess basically, yeah, you're saying we don't know what comes next, and that to me is a problem, because like I said, better. It's not the devil. The saying "better the devil you know" feels wrong when I'm talking about like Christianity is, but it is the thing. Like we know what that is, and we know that there are worse. We know there are worse things that exist that can replace it, and they're at the door. You know what I mean? One of them is knocking on the door constantly, and one of the last kind of barriers to allowing a much more violent system, a much more violent religion in, is the fact that people are proud and standing up for the religion they currently have. If that goes, then like I said, what replaces it is going to be significantly worse. So that's a concern. But like you said, you never know. And then, this again,
well, but
this is not
also,
activism or a
it's
crusade.
like,
It's more just like thinking,
yeah, but also like, if we are on that trajectory, how do we address it?
Oh,
Because it doesn't seem like a realistic path forward to try and convince all of the people who have become less religious to become more religious.
that's a good point.
Because at the end of the day, they're just not convinced by it.
Okay, here we go.
Right.
So here's why. Okay, here's what you're right. I didn't get to this yet. I'll get to this now. So what I think we could do, and I don't think this is a crazy thing to say. So for example, with you, you're an atheist. I'm an atheist. Fine. Lawrence, would you get value from going to a group with other people from your community that you maybe don't ever see or would ever meet, and sitting with them and doing some positive, loving things together for 30 minutes to an hour once a week? Would that benefit you in your life?
I will answer, but can I add a little caveat?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, but I would find it personally extremely hard to do it in some sort of setting where it's tied to some sort of, supernatural claim.
Right.
Like, I could go and do that around a campfire, but if I went to a church, I'd just be stood there the whole time being like, these people are in La La Land. Like, this is just, do you get what I mean?
Right. Well, you don't need to buy what they're selling to have the benefits of what they are into. As in, you can go to a church, a place where people come together to share an experience and connect, and in their eyes, they're coming to pay some kind of respects or whatever to a god. But that's not the only reason they're going, and it's not even most of the reason they're going. Most of the reason they go is for the things that I just mentioned: the social element of it, the feeling like you belong in some kind of group, the feeling that everyone in there's got your back. So, in my eyes, yes, I'd find it a little cringe too, and I'd find it funny, and I'd probably laugh to myself. But after a couple of weeks, I probably wouldn't anymore. I'd just appreciate being somewhere where we're all of a similar mind, we're all in there, and we're going to do what we do, and we're going to listen to some inspirational words, and we're going to take something from it, and then we're going to have a nice time, and then, get all the benefits without any of the... Don't know, there's no problem. There is no downside to this. There is no bad to this.
Yeah, but the thing is I don't think that's a realistic way forward, because getting non-religious people to go into a religious setting, even though you can benefit from the other things, if you're in a setting where there's this elephant in the room, where everyone there is singing to Jesus and God, and you're just in a position where you're like, I just don't buy the fundamental thing that is underlying this all.
This is just that individual.
When I could just as easily go and meet my friends in a pub. Do you get
But
what I
that
mean?
is not the same, and you know it. It does not have the same. It doesn't have the same impact on you. It doesn't give you the same social cohesion of your community. You're not in the pub because you all believe in the importance of being together and coming together and doing something productive and nice and loving. You're going to talk about dirty, disgusting crap because you're probably all going to be lads. And it's not the same. That's a different need in your life, right? Okay, it doesn't only serve you, but it serves a higher purpose when you're going to do this. Because not only as an atheist, okay, you're an atheist, right? Here's the points, right? Okay. So firstly, you get the actual connecting with your community, which is incredibly important. Everybody knows that's important. We're too disconnected now. That's one. Two, you make network and connections that are probably going to help you in your personal life as well. At work, it's well known that people who are going to church together help each other out with business and other things. And you know what I mean? So you're going to get that too, because people care a lot more about the people they go to church with, and you're going to be one of them. Whether you believe it or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're still going to get that connection. Three, by you engaging with this and standing up for these practices, these cultural practices, without the religious element, without the God element, but the cultural practice and the tradition of doing this, and you getting behind it and saying, I think this is important, I think this is something we need to keep, this is valuable, you're also staying off anything else that may come in and try and take it away. That could be worse. You become part of a resistance of those who want it to be gone and replaced by either materialistic nonsense or another religion that would start to remove your freedoms from you. So I think those things all together, I think that's a pretty compelling argument, just to go to church and enjoy the situation and just get over the fact that you don't necessarily believe in God, but you're happy to receive the positive messages. And let's be real, even if you are an atheist, most of your life you've been living by that book without even knowing it. So realistically, it's not like you're changing anything. You're just going to go into the place that all your lessons came from in the first place, you know?
I feel like that's a big step, because just think about all the non-religious people you know, which is probably quite a lot, right? Can you picture a significant portion of them actually going to church and going along with all this? I can. For me personally, I can't. I know I would say almost all of the people I have meaningful relationships with are either they would describe themselves as atheist or agnostic or however, you know, but none of them sort of commit themselves to a religion. I cannot picture any of them sacrificing time and energy to go and do that sort of stuff.
Then maybe they should, and maybe they'll start to think about things outside their own little pocket and bubble of the world. Maybe they'll start to connect with their community and be more generous to those in it.
No, but the thing is I think you're setting up a binary, like they do anyway. Like a lot of these people are vegan, like they're part of a community already. They're part of the vegan community.
Yeah, I get that.
Many of my friends donate to charity, all of these sorts of things.
And you don't think there's a bubble there? You don't think there's a bubble within the vegan community? That people don't see others outside of it so much, and they don't consider others outside of their own little community? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, why not?
But the thing is we're just trading one bubble for another.
No, we're not. We're adding a bubble.
You're leaving the vegan bubble and going into the Christian bubble.
You're adding a bubble. Well, no, this is the point, though, because if everybody was in the Christian bubble as they would have been, that's what I'm trying to say, then you're connecting with a large network of people these are your people, your society, your community, and then you have that big social cohesion part coming in. Because if obviously currently you're just going to be connecting with, just a tiny pocket of people. But if everybody got on board with doing this again, and it might not even, look, I'm talking about Christianity because that's the way of the churches. We already have the networks. If it wasn't Christianity, call it whatever, call it bloody, I don't know. If it was a naturism religion that was here instead of Christianity, I imagine, oh no, this naturism religion is now on the down. How do we get people to go back? Well, let's get them back into the tree churches or whatever. I don't care about the actual. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm married to Christianity, but that's just the thing that's there already.
No. I understand that. I'm not particularly taking aim at Christianity either. I'm just saying, I can't.
Just listen to me for a minute, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, listen to this, right? I was in a church, and this was a church in Scotland, and it's the only painting that exists of Jesus with pregnant Mary, his apparent wife, some people have claimed, right? So anyway, we were in there, and I saw something on the wall. I took a picture of it, right? So this is the kind of thing that people are going to say. This kind of thing like a priest or whatever is going to talk about when you're in church. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Tell me what you think of these lessons one by one. I'll say it,
Okay.
and then you can tell me if you like it or not. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
And what's it meaning by that?
What do you think it's meaning by it? Interpret it. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
It's meaning people who are in poverty or hardship. They are the ones that are truly deserving of finding peace and justice and all this sort of stuff in their life.
And that's true. We know that's true.
Yeah.
The next one. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. That was pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Just like look after each other, those who are mourning. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
Yeah.
What does that one mean to you?
Let me actually look up what meek means. How do you spell it?
M-E-E-K. From what I understand of meek, it's an old word.
Oh, okay. Yeah, meek, it means quiet, gentle, and easily imposed on.
Right.
Like submissive.
Right.
So repeat it again.
Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
Yeah, so there it's basically saying those who are sort of like tread softly on the earth, they're not imposing these sorts of things.
Yeah, they're not going to.
Those people are the ones that will be inheriting true value in the earth.
Right, exactly.
Or should.
That's what I would interpret it as too. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled.
Yeah,
that one I like that one a lot. That's it's looking after others before yourself. Don't worry about your hunger and thirst. Do what is righteous, and you'll get your bit. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. It's a pretty simple one. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. That's pretty simple too. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Again, pretty simple stuff. And blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Right? So to me, that is all about being an activist. It's literally all about it. I see this, I apply this to animal rights because, especially that last bit, being persecuted for righteousness, like you go out, you stick your neck out to try and help those who can't help themselves. And, Christianity supports that. It's like, yeah, you're doing a good thing. That's a good thing. To me, these are lessons that people aren't getting. Right. And I'm trying to say, like, if people lived by that, just that alone, how much better would they be? And these lessons came from like Christianity. So, sitting in a room where people are saying stuff like that, if that's what they're saying, I don't see why an atheist would have an issue with that.
No, I'm not saying an atheist would have an issue in those messages being conveyed to people. What I was saying is that people who are atheist, I don't think would be compelled to go and sit in a room where someone is saying that, and it's all attached to this supernatural stuff, right, about God, because someone can take on those like messages and understand them, like me and you, right? Like neither of us go to church on a regular basis or ever, right? I mean, occasionally go into a church and appreciate the architecture or the stained glass or whatever. We don't go there for religious purposes.
Not yet.
But both of us try to manifest those things in our lives, right?
Well, yes, but also it would be a lot easier to manifest these things in your life if you had a weekly sermon where you had lessons taken from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lessons, and they were posited to you on a weekly basis of like, here's your thing to think about until next week and to live by. I mean,
but I'm not disagreeing with that.
Okay.
I'm agree. I think that would be the case for many people. I don't think for me, I don't think it would be the case for me. I think I don't need to go to a room somewhere.
I'm not saying you need to. I'm saying
I know, but
it's a good thing.
I agree that I agree. I think if we lived in a world where everyone did that,
right,
it would be a better world, right? Whether it was religious or not. But those things being taught to people on a weekly basis, if it was instilled in children in school, etc., we live in a better world.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
it's not going to happen. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. That's what I'm saying. Is people are not compelled to. I think if you really wanted to have that instilled in people, rather than trying to get people to become more religious, it would probably be a better avenue to try and get it as a mandatory teaching in school or something, because then every kid who grows up in the country is going to have
Yeah.
get like ethics and philosophy or ethics and virtue as a mandatory class in schools. That seems to me like it would probably be an easier way forward than trying to get everyone who's moved away from church back into church, because they're just not going to buy it.
No. No, I don't disagree with that. And that's what I've told you. My prediction of the future is either one that is controlled by one religion that we don't want to be, or the
Yeah.
alternative, which is materialism and selfishness. I don't think we're actually going to solve this problem. I mean, I'm not, it's not depressing. I'm just kind of like mentally preparing for the world that we're probably going to grow old in, and it's probably not going to be very good in terms of people's energies and kind of like, not energies, what's the word for like the vibe, I suppose. People's vibe is going to be very bad, I think, as we grow old.
People's values.
Their value systems, their actions, their behaviors, the energies they bring to the world. I think I don't hold a lot of hope for the way the way it's going right now. I know there are some groups that are trying their hardest to stop all this stuff, but I think the ones that want it to go that way, they want us all to become selfish and materialistic. I think they have more influence and power, and I think they're winning, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like
spirituality basically can't die, but it is dying. And I think the atheists are partly to blame for that, because they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Do you know what I mean?
No, I agree. I mean, it's still to be seen like what the ultimate impact of something like the new atheist movement was, you know, the sort of Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens of the world. Like, I agree with them in terms of their position on whether a God exists, but whether ultimately the influence they had is going to be better or worse for society, like, who knows, you know, like I don't know. I definitely benefited from their presence as an individual, but that's separate from whether society at large is going to benefit, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I don't think we're fully going to be able to know. But I agree with you. I'm like pessimistic about the future. One reason for that is just like the increase in the number of wars going on, and that's probably going to increase. You know, there's an arena of war opening up in South America as well. Like, I think all of this, you know, potentially Taiwan in the future, all this sort of stuff. Like, I just, I'm not particularly positive about the future
for sure, man.
either,
Like, I saw that Iran just attacked Iraq. Did you see that? That was today.
Oh no!
They've sent missiles. They bombed a place in Iraq because they claimed that it was like a Jewish stronghold, like they had an Israeli stronghold there. So they bombed it and killed, I think, 6 civilians killed and 4 injured. And that's huge. Obviously, that's like another act of war between 2 countries, which is just that, you know, every time you think, oh, we've reached probably a peak of conflict, it just escalates. So no, you're right. You're totally right. There seems to be no restraint right now across the board. Is just, I watched this video the other day that literally it was the world at war in 2023, and it was this guy going through every conflict. And honestly,
was that the one I sent you?
Was it? Yeah. Dude, I knew about 2 of them, and there was like 15 conflicts. I was like, big ones. It was like, are you kidding me? Oh my lord! It's just, Anyway, but obviously, there's no saying whether, like, you know, this is not really part of this conversation, I suppose, because I don't know. I suppose if people, it kind of is. If people were actually following peaceful religions that promoted only peace and none of this other stuff, then there's none of this would happen. But unfortunately, most religions these days have non-peaceful sides to them either because people misinterpret them, or because the saviors of said religion were also violent in some cases, and so, you know, we have a complete disaster. But in some ideal world where people actually followed Buddhism, for example, or not even Christianity, just Jesus or Buddha. If you follow Jesus or Buddha, then everything's going to be fine. That's it. Just ignore everything else and just like, hey, what did Buddha say about killing? Don't do it. Sweet. You know, what did Jesus say about killing? Don't do it. Sweet. What about self-defense though? Do it, but only within reason. Sweet.
Yeah,
All right, nice one. Just live like that, and we're all going to be fine, aren't we? But no, unfortunately, no.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing to well, I don't know if this is going to be the best thing to one thing that does give me some hope is that there are some communities who are popping up and promoting virtues that were traditionally promoted by religion. So for example, um whatever people think of Islam generally, it does instill a virtue of giving in people. It has zakat, so you're supposed to give, I think it's 2.5% of your zakat. I think that's how
I
that's
thought
how
you said
it's
it has a cat. So, they're big into cats.
And like certain sects of Christianity, I think Catholicism has like you're supposed to give 10% away and stuff.
Right.
So like these were like virtues that were promoted by certain religions. And in communities that become less religious, there are certain groups that are promoting those virtues. So one, they've had a bit of controversies recently, but one is effective altruism. Heavily atheist. There will be some religious people in there, but it's a heavily secular atheist sort of community. But it big time promotes and has been very successful in promoting charitable giving, and not just charitable giving, to like some random person you see on the street, which is also a good thing, or giving to your church or something, but actually thinking, how can I give money in like the best way I can, and really think about it. So there are some, I've got to say there aren't many, but there are some reasons to be somewhat hopeful about, certain good things that have come out of religion still being continued. But I do agree, generally the picture is not that amazing.
Is effective altruism basically religion for atheists?
Yeah, for some people, yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, no. I don't think effective altruism would be a religion for the people in it. I would say it's probably more utilitarianism, which really underpins.
That's the
altruism.
religious element of it, like
Yeah,
utilitarianism.
yeah. A lot of people like they go really sort of balls deep in that. Yeah.
Right. Fair enough. I mean, that's I mean, I've heard you talk about that before. I think we've discussed effective altruism before as well. Yeah. So I guess, I mean, I suppose what we've achieved today is we've let everybody know that Satan is knocking at the door of your heart, and you need to decide whether you're going to let him in, or Jesus in, or Buddha in. One of them's coming in. You need to figure out who's coming in you.
Should we close out by reading out all your blessed are the, what, when you said blessed are the peacemakers, it reminded me of the Life of Brian, where he's listening out and he's like, what did he say? Oh, blessed are the cheesemakers.
I didn't remember that.
Oh yeah, you should watch that film again. I mean, it is a piss take of religion, but it's so, and it's really funny, and it's got loads of things that are topical for today, and they were completely way ahead of their time.
I've spotted a couple of those, like the the wanting to be a woman thing was probably one of the craziest things they called.
That was insane.
The accuracy,
like the dialogue they have, the accuracy,
the accuracy of that is wild. Yeah, it is wild. So in conclusion, though, so I suppose we could, before we read the two donation comments, and guys, send them through now if you want us to respond to more from you. We agree that we're both atheists still, right? So that's fine. We don't believe in the woo-woo spirituality. You are, I don't know. Do you believe in spirituality? I suppose. I mean, you must do, right?
Well, different people, mean different things by spirituality. But like, I'm open to spirituality. It depends. Yeah, like if you define spirituality as sort of like, meditation or stuff like that, then that's stuff I appreciate. Yeah.
I suppose what I'm saying to you is like, you're not. Like, I used to think I was like this, but I'm definitely not. But you're not you're not like cold mathematical kind of, that's all there is in the world. You definitely like kind of like, I feel there's more meaning to what I do than it's just logical, right? That you're in that boat, no?
Yeah. I mean, I don't entirely know what you mean, but like I have my sort of side that I like to think is rational, and then I have my more sort of warm fuzzy side.
Right. Yeah. So for example, you don't, if every decision you make in your life isn't based on logic. Some of them are based on the fact that you're
No,
like,
no.
right, okay, so you're based on,
Most of them are emotional, probably.
right, and that's what I'm saying is like sometimes you like you could talk passionately about your purpose, and like, I believe that like my purpose is to do this, right? Because that's not very logical. That's spiritual. That's like I feel like I'm here to achieve this thing. Like you have those thoughts or that kind of feeling sometimes, or like, right? So
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
spiritual, you know. So okay, we're both on board. No woo woo, but definitely open to that kind of drive that comes from somewhere that you know you apply it
You can't really
logically.
put a finger on, yeah.
Right, you apply it logically, but it doesn't come from a logical place. Like, oh, this is 2 times 2 is 4. It's like no, it comes from something else. There's an inner drive that you have. Right, fine, cool. And we both agree that a lot of the alternatives to, say, Christianity are bad, but they don't necessarily. We agree that it's not necessarily that if Christianity does go away, or Buddhism does go away, or any of the other good religions go away, it's not like it's a guarantee that they're going to be replaced by bad things, although it is quite likely. Do we agree on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's we can go with that. I mean, it's just so hard to know, but yeah.
Cool.
If we're talking about religions, if other religions fill the void, then yeah, I would agree. They'd probably not be as
Or
good.
things that pose as religions but are actually nowhere near equipped to replace a religion, and they're going to leave.
Yeah, because even if they're virtuous, like veganism, and obviously I think everyone should be vegan.
Yes.
But in terms of something that would rule society, I mean, we would just fall apart.
Right. Interesting. Cool. So that's pretty much well established. And obviously, I agree with you that it's not going to happen. But I think everybody would benefit if we all started going to church. I really do. I don't want to, by the way. I truly don't want to. I would never want to sit in a church for 1 hour a week. But I think it would be good for me. And I think it would be good for all of us. But I wouldn't want to do it.
You're my case in point. The atheist friend who can recognize some of the good stuff, but they just like are not going to go to church.
No, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm saying I wouldn't want to. Like if I lived somewhere, like actually lived somewhere, and there was a church down the road, I could get there easily, I'd go on Sundays. I'd start my day off that way and see if I like it, see how I feel, or every other week. I'd try and live with what I think would be good for me. And you know what? Maybe it wouldn't be good. Maybe in the end, it wouldn't be good. Maybe I actually wouldn't benefit. I wouldn't feel the benefit I thought I would. I wouldn't feel like I was part of this cohesion. Maybe it's not what I'm imagining. I'd go and test it out. But if I tested it out and it was true and it actually was what I imagined, I'd be like, sweet, I'm going to do this regular.
Okay, I've got a proposal. Next time, so I'm obviously in London. I live here. Next time you're in London, we will go to a church service together, and you can pick which one we go to.
That sounds fun. Let's do that.
Yeah,
let's do that.
And then, I won't take the piss.
And let's tell people that we're atheists. I'm dead serious. Let's tell people that we're atheists, but we're open to the lessons and the life lessons, positive ones of Christianity and the teachings of Jesus. That's why we're here. Do you accept us? And let's see if they're like, get out and never come back. Or if they're like, no, anyone that's open to the message of Jesus is welcome here. I reckon that's what they'd say.
I also agree. I think because I think they will probably have that approach just because the sort of people that will go will be generally like open and people who, you know, it on a very basic level, it's just a space that they appreciate and they would like other people to join that space, right? In a respectful way.
I think so. I'll find some kind of metal church where someone just gets up and they're just like, praise the Lord.
I feel like they'd only have that in Finland.
That's true. That's true. No, in Finland, the anti-theists, they burn church. They were burning churches down here. The death metal guys.
Oh, really?
Oh, they were,
recently, or is this
no, some years back, but there's a really weird thing here with, I'm sure some people still are Christians here, but there was a very anti-Christian thing here. With burning down churches and stuff, which is pretty insane. There's a whole documentary about it that we watched, which was surprising.
Oh, that's cool.
So we'll do that, man. We'll do that in London. I'm excited for that. I don't really know what to expect from London because I mean London is dodgy. But,
well, no, there are still pretty big and grand churches that have big sort of congregations. There's one in Victoria. I think it is Westminster Cathedral.
Okay.
And you can just walk in, you know, when they're having a service.
Sounds good. I'm keen on that. I'd love to go in and see how it feels. Someone earlier said that maybe I've got nostalgia from being raised as a Christian. By the way, I just wanted to correct the record. I wasn't raised Christian. I was actually raised as nothing. My mum just like, you figure it out for yourself if you want to be a Christian or not. She wasn't Christian either, so just wanted to clarify
but maybe they're talking about when you grew up. You said
Christian
that
school.
you were learning about Jesus, and that was something you look back at fondly, right?
So I was in a Christian school, and I learned about Jesus in my own time, not the school's time. And the school, we went to church, but it was twice a year, maybe something like that. It was a church school, but they didn't put a lot of emphasis on the church part, to be totally honest with you.
Sounds pretty lax.
Yeah, that was more my interest, because once I started to learn about this dude, this Jesus dude, I was like, oh, sounds cool. And I told you I was a little geek in the library with no friends reading books about Jesus. Not the Bible, but like, you know,
Jesus
stories.
was also a virgin.
Oh man, yeah, I was a loser at school, man, until the last 2 years, and then I was like, yeah, somehow became somewhat popular. I don't know how it happened, but for the rest of the time, I was a total loser. It was terrible. But that's a whole other podcast. We'll do another podcast about, well, we already did one kind of about school, didn't we? We don't do that again. Yeah. I do have another topic before I read the comments. I do have another topic. Oh God, what was it? Annie mentioned it to me earlier that there was a topic we should talk about.
What, religion related?
No, completely unrelated to that.
Well, if it's big enough, we can save it for a separate episode.
What, you think we'll do it now? No, I'm not going to do it now, dude. We're 1 hour 40
I thought
in.
You wanted to do it
No,
now.
I was just like going to pitch the viewers on the next episode, you know?
Right.
But I can't remember what it was off the top of my head now. Maybe Annie's messaging me right now to tell me. There was it was a good one. It was my God. Anyway, whatever. Guys, the next topic that we'll discuss is going to be brilliant, okay? So just make sure you come back next time. And the messages. Okay, so we got a couple of messages. Well, we've only got one message and just one message, one donation. So message and donation from Robin Hood. Cheers, mate. He says, here is what Jesus would do. He would get everyone so mad they would nail him to a cross. Which, to be totally honest with you, I mean, I don't think Christians would be offended by that, because they'd have to agree that he probably would.
That is what he did do,
he probably would come along and be like, hey, guys, listen, you should all be vegan because you shouldn't kill animals, right? You don't need to anymore. So stop it. And that would be it. They just get him nailed into it. They'd be like, no, we love burgers too much. That would be it. That would be it. Done. And they wouldn't believe that he was Jesus. They would tell him, oh, you're just another person trying to take away my rights to eat meats. And they'd kill him immediately. You're probably right on that one. And DJ Lernal, thank you for the donation, mate. You didn't send a message. Never does. And it's very selfless. It's very Christian of you, just to fire over a donation with no message. But I always appreciate when you do that. It's even more meaningful because you're like, I don't even want to say anything. just want to support you. It's very nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Annie's told, okay, the next one we're going to do that I propose, Lawrence, but you can decide if you agree. The next topic I'd like to do is comedy. I'd like to talk to you about comedy. About, is there a line? And should some things not be joked about? Or is everything on the table? And
I'm up for that, but didn't we cover that in a previous podcast?
I don't know.
Maybe it was one of the unreleased ones.
I don't know. I don't think it's on the channel if we did. But
I'm up for that.
It's extra relevant right now because Ricky Gervais is getting dragged. Dave Chappelle again.
I was going to say I saw.
Is getting dragged. There are a ton of controversial comedians that just it seems to be ramping up again. And I've seen some comedians on YouTube. I've seen an Israeli comedian who's been making jokes about the conflict. I've seen a Palestinian comedian who's making jokes about the conflict, and they're both getting it in the neck on both sides. People leaving their shows, people canceling their bookings with them and stuff so it's either both sides are getting it in the so it's a really interesting time to talk about comedy, I think.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I have some things.
Cool. And I'll bring some examples of some of the jokes they were telling to just really make sure this podcast gets like
demonetized.
not just demonetized. That's it. YouTube's like, right, channel's gone. That's it. See you later. No, but these jokes are on YouTube, so I mean, I'll just write some down and then I'll say, okay, here's one that they said. Here's one that they said. Is this too far? Blah blah blah, stuff like that. All right, dude.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about it afterwards more as well. But I think if you're going to write down examples, write down the context they're
Of
in
course,
as
I'm
well.
just gonna. I know how to do a joke, man.
Okay.
Like,
No, not the context as in. I don't mean the context as in like the context of what's being said. I mean the context of like, was it in a room at a comedy gig,
oh,
or was this?
all right.
Because I think that is also important. The context, the sort of environmental context that you're
Yeah,
in.
I get you. Yeah. I mean, they're all
Yeah.
comedy shows, so yeah.
Okay, all right. Well then, yeah, just blanket. Yeah.
All right. Well, good chat. Appreciate it. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully, just got loads of new Christians now. Now everyone's been in the chat just being like, "It's all nonsense. It's all complete nonsense. We've lost David. We've lost him. He's on." It's like, no. I'm not all woo woo. I don't believe in some sky daddy who's making the rules and stuff. No. I feel like we've established that what the case is here, right?
Come on, let's have some crosses in the chat for Jesus. Crosses in the chat.
Yeah, exactly, guys. Crosses in the... I've never understood that. I saw a joke about this, but I absolutely agree with it. That the symbolism of the cross in that being like, why have you chosen that as the symbol of Christianity? The thing that your savior was nailed to, and you want to wear it around your neck for the symbolism. Feels like it's a, PTSD when he comes back and just sees crosses everywhere. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, well, I mean, some people actually have Jesus on the cross, right, as a necklace or at their house. I think I mean, I don't know, like, how serious you meant this, but, like, I think people use it as a symbol of, like, remembering the sacrifices that were made, sort of thing. It's the same that people wear poppies, right? Remembering
but that's a bit different. No one was killed by a poppy.
Like... no, but okay, yeah, that's true. It would be like going around wearing sort of like a Luger or something,
is going around wearing a bloody German Luftwaffe bloody fighter plane or one of the tanks just around your neck. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. They reference similar things like the sacrifices that were made, but one of them is a bit more below the belt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been any other. You could have just picked any symbol.
Yeah, like a wreath of thorns.
Right. See, that would have been.
That was a joke.
I mean, it didn't kill him though, did it? But like a wreath.
Well, no, but it made him bleed quite a lot.
Oh God. We do put wreaths up. We put them up for Christmas. We celebrate his birth with something that was shoved on his head at death. What is wrong with people? That is wild when you think about it. Oh God, it could have been so many other things, It could have been just like a little love heart to represent all the love that he gave. Just a little heart that you wear in a chain, like a 17-year-old girl, like you bought from H.M. Samuel or Argos. You know what I mean? Just like that, or that you would give to your, with your girlfriend back then. And that's the only two places you go and buy stuff from because it was like £8. That's all you had for Valentine's Day. Like that was this little heart. That's it, done. Man, that would have been better. Yeah.
Well, I was just trying to think. I can't actually think of any symbols that are associated with Jesus that aren't associated with him being killed.
What about just the hands? Just the prayer hands would have been nice too. Just little. That's the symbol, praying hands or a cheek.
That's not
someone's face by the side. It's to represent turning the cheek.
Just a silhouette of
a person.
Jesus.
Of a person. Yeah, exactly. It's
but the thing is, no, but here, so this gets into slightly controversial terrain because if you were actually going to have a silhouette of Jesus, he's actually been morphed over the years, isn't it? Because in all the representations we see, he's white, but he wasn't actually white.
No, yeah.
So then it's like, what are people going to go around with the silhouette of someone who they don't even recognize? You get what I mean?
Yeah, but the silhouette, you can't tell if someone's white or not by a silhouette.
Well, yeah, like their hair and like...
Just make it generic. Just make it it's a silhouette. I don't get how you'd be able to... What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you can tell the difference between men and women with a silhouette because men will often have beards, especially back in those days.
Silhouette. Do you know what a silhouette is, man?
Yeah, it's a side-on...
No, it's black. It's with the light. When the light casts a shadow.
No, I know. No, I get what you mean, but when I said a silhouette,
outline,
I meant a side profile,
but also silhouetted.
Well, no, not necessarily. I just meant silhouette, but as in like side profile.
You just wanted to do like a fashion side profile or like a police photography. Like, okay, now this way, okay, now this way, yeah. Yeah, maybe that would have been. Yeah, you're right. The image is, his picture is morphed too much for that.
Yeah.
But like prayer hands would have been fine. That's like
Yeah,
gender
that's
neutral, race neutral. You can't tell someone's. So that would be fine. Prayer hands, or just the love heart. Like I said, the 17-year-old girl fake gold love heart, the one that you bought for your girlfriend back then from HM Samuel for £9. That one. Everyone would do it. There you go. That's the symbol. That's what it should be. All right. I'm glad we put all this to bed.
Yeah.
Let's stop now before quick while I don't think we're very ahead, to be honest with you. I think this video's doomed. But for YouTube wise, it's doomed. And for any Christian that watches it, they're going to be like, these two are like evil. They're going to be like this.
Well, I think,
Satan.
yeah. I think when we got into Christian themed jewelry, we kind of tailed off.
Maybe. There's the aim is not to offend here. I mean, the thing is, they're going to another tangent, but religion should be able to be made fun of just as much as anything else. It's just another, you shouldn't go to hell for that. I mean, imagine if you went to hell for making these jokes. That'd be very petty God, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Or you shouldn't get like blown up or shot up in a, like a...
Jesus. Yeah, it wouldn't be Jesus doing that. That's for sure. All right. Well, cheers, Lawrence. Annie put your channel in earlier for people to go and follow you. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers, Annie.
Yeah. So everyone's got that. Guys, hope you enjoy this. If you do enjoy it, get down in the comments when we finish the stream and tell everybody how much you enjoyed it, or just make comments about what you think, and just do whatever you want. Say something underneath though, because it helps YouTube know that it's a popular stream. And also, we're curious to hear what you have to say. So get underneath, make some comments, please. Like it. I mean, share it if you want, I suppose. I mean, this is more like a hobby, really. So it's, it's not, we're not trying to get people to change or anything. Share it with people you think might be interested in it, but don't worry too much about sharing it. It's all right. All right, Lawrence, you wanna say goodbye?
Cheers for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you. See you all in the next one.